Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today I will be talking about Season 5, Episode 1, Arthur. This episode was directed by Alfred Hitchcock and stars Laurence, Harvey, and Hazel. And I have to say, Arthur was a solid, enjoyable episode to start Season 5. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. It's not a perfect episode, but it's good. So, after a brief intro by Hitchcock, which was alright, we start with our main character Arthur, and he's talking directly to us, and he'll narrate the whole episode. And I thought it was good to get my attention right away. So, he explains that he runs a chicken farm, and he does it all by himself, and he's very proud of that fact that he can do it all by himself, which will be important to the themes of the episode later on. He also talks a little bit more about chickens before doing one in, showing us that maybe this guy Arthur is not all there or just not very good. So at this point he decides to cook some dinner, and he tells us a little bit more background. And eventually he also brings up a woman named Helen who he is engaged to. So now we get a flashback, something that's somewhat common on Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And he's talking to this woman named Helen. We're introduced to her. And it seems like they're engaged to be married, but it seems like both of them kind of want to break it off. She says she found another guy, and she doesn't really want to be stuck on this farm all the time. And Arthur doesn't seem too broken up about it. He basically releases her from this engagement, and it seems like he'd kind of rather be by himself. So at this point, we're introduced to another character in the episode named John, and he meets up with Arthur. And this man is a sergeant, I believe, or an inspector. He definitely works for the police, which we'll find out later. And Arthur's showing off some new machinery that he seems to be very proud of. He also talks to this man, John, about the joys of being alone. He says everything's the way he wants it. He can do what he wants. And interestingly, he says he thinks more people would want this, but they just aren't brave enough to do it, which is kind of interesting. So John leaves. He's supposed to meet up with Arthur later that day to play chess, I believe, which is pretty interesting. So things seem to be going well for Arthur, but when he goes back inside, Helen is back. It turns out things didn't work out with the other man. And immediately you can tell Arthur's plotting some way to get rid of this woman. He's very annoyed by her because she doesn't do the dishes. She leaves like ashes lying around. She's just not as neat and tidy as Arthur would like. So at this point they're talking, and Helen tries to make nice with Arthur, but you can tell he's annoyed by pretty much everything she says and does. So at this point, Arthur decides that it's best for everyone if he does Helen in. So he strangles her, which was a pretty disturbing scene. So at this point, John comes back. He wants to inquire about Helen. Shockingly, this even surprised me, Arthur doesn't lie about it. He says, yeah, she was here. I guess he figures if he's honest, it'll take suspicion off of him. He also says she left her suitcase there. So he shows all this to John. He's very cooperative, and he tells us in his narration that if he tells this simple story, it'll make him seem innocent. So at this point, I was very curious to see if this would work or not. So at this point, John comes back yet again, and he brings another inspector with him. I'm guessing like a head inspector or something, even though they don't really say. So they look around for a little bit, but don't really find anything. But it turns out that Arthur is now getting annoyed because he's definitely being watched. They're leaving like surveillance or something around him. So he's very irritated by this. So at this point, he decides he has to take matters into his own hands a little bit more. So he goes away for a couple days, and when he comes back, his farm is torn up pretty good. They've really searched it pretty heavily. Arthur says he went out looking for Helen because he thought maybe she got lost in some caves or something, and then that he got lost for a couple days, and that's why he hasn't been around. This part was a little weird, but I guess you just have to go with it. It doesn't seem like the inspector or John really buy into it either. The problem is they just can't find a body, and I kind of figured out the twist at this point that the body's probably not really there, that he disposed of it in another way. So sure enough, we go back to the present, and it turns out that it's Christmas time. And Arthur explains that he sent a Christmas gift to the inspector. He sent him some chicken, and he talks about how he used his special ingredients, and that's why it was so good. And of course, one of the ingredients was the body. At least it's heavily implied in that, and Alfred Hitchcock kind of confirms that at the end of the episode. So kind of a dark ending, but the whole episode has kind of an odd tone that pretty much works for me for the most part. And I did enjoy Arthur, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's well directed by Hitchcock, well acted by Laurence, Harvey, and Hazel Court, and I just enjoyed the episode overall. I don't think it's an all-time classic, but it's definitely a solid start to season 5. So 4 out of 5 for the episode Arthur, and thanks for watching.